Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Connected and Committed podcast.
Welcome back, guys. It's been 2 weeks as usual, right?
Mhm.
We didn't take a break,
No,
so I don't know if we're gonna take a break soon,
if
because
we're gonna end
we're
up in the series, that's assuming we have this month, this
since it's just summertime,
season,
family vacation, all that. We'll see.
and then we'll come back stronger in the fall. We'll see. And not like we could not, but his mom is coming, so maybe when your mom comes, we'll take that break. That makes more sense. We might take a break in July.
It does make sense. Yeah,
So
because how are we gonna record if they're
no, yeah. Hey guys, you
here?
can't stay in the room as we do it.
my,
Yeah,
mom, my mom is gonna be a guest on my podcast. Woo!
she'll be speaking French the whole time.
I'll translate everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, yeah. So this will be the only episode we'll do in July, and then we will come back probably in August. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Well, we just decided that right
Or
now.
maybe we'll do one more before she comes, and
Oh, I guess that, yeah.
yeah.
I guess that would work. Cool.
Anyways, this is our personal. Now you have a little look behind the scenes
Yeah, about how we do this
of
thing.
our multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, listen, we can only dream.
Hey,
But
goals.
yeah, so we hope everyone is doing well. And thank you again for everybody who reached out and said to us, like you're praying for us and all the things that really mattered. I think that meant a lot to us. And I think it's just kind for you to even take the time to listen to the episode and to reach out. I think that's just really,
Yeah,
really special. So thank you for being an incredible community.
yeah, and it's been interesting too because like we literally had two friends who had a baby, like
Oh
two
my gosh,
babies.
2 babies in the same day.
Yeah,
That was wild.
yeah,
Yeah.
and someone who is not going to be named announced that they're pregnant.
Yeah. That was
So it's like
crazy.
Jesus, that's a
Then we
lot.
just saw my nephew. Like it was just a lot of
A lot
incredible
of baby
babies. A
stuff.
lot of babies.
It's kind of interesting how that happened,
I think we're just
and
in the season,
also
no? It makes
I don't know
sense.
if you we're not gonna name people, but like we realized like some of our friends also
Yeah.
actually had miscarriages the same month we did.
Yeah. So that was wild. I
So
think
that's
that.
pretty crazy too.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
like interesting experiences. But I think too, we're just at the age where everyone's just like trying to have kids. I feel like before, if I live in Omaha, maybe I live in Omaha, it'd be different because everyone had babies when they're like young because that's normal there.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think we're at the age now where we're like, oh wow, I don't know if any other of our friends who are married don't have kids yet. Like obviously there is some who just got married, of course, but like anybody who's in like our circle, there's no one left except for one or two people. So anyway, it's just interesting to feel like,
It's
wow,
crazy.
this is coming up, and now this is like our new season that we're going to be in of being parents and
It's kind of
having
interesting
community. Yeah.
because it's like now we feel like because we want to obviously have kids, but now it's almost like dang, since all friends are having kids, like we need to like be in the same season.
I would like to be
For
for
me,
sure.
it feels like that, not in a bad way, not in a way of like, oh, we're late, we need to catch up,
No,
but
yeah,
more like it just feels like
it's a natural
why we're
progression.
not doing it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
it's like everybody's having it, everybody's lives are changing. Now
Hmm.
we're like, it would be really beneficial for us to have a kid this and see our friends' babies and our babies grow up together and all
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
it's
But that's
special.
not the topic of the podcast.
It's not the topic, but it is about marriage. And we did a Q&A a few days ago, and I tried answering a lot of questions as much as I could in 2 day span, but there was so many. But there were a few I actually wanted to highlight because I thought they'd be helpful as podcast episodes, and see what comes up from there. But there was two that were kind of similar. Someone said, "Why am I still anxious after getting married? Does that mean maybe God didn't want me to?" And another person said, "Married to the love of my life and still getting ROCD episodes that feel overwhelming. How do I stay?" And actually, there's another one too, but I actually responded later. And she said how she's married and not happy and she
Mm.
doesn't know what to do. And she has a lot of relationship anxiety. And so we wanted to address that because I think it's important. We obviously talk a lot about dating going into marriage. And mostly that's like I would say majority of our audience is. But we do have a handful of people, I don't say handful, like let's say like 10%, 10-15% of people who
It's
are
big.
married. Yeah. And have relationship anxiety and don't know what to do. Cause then it's like, well, I'm already in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know now I'm stuck. It can feel
Mm.
like I'm stuck. And I think anxiety has a huge playground it can use because of that situation.
Mm.
And we've talked about for us when we got married, it was easy for it not to stick because we were like, okay, well, there's something like, in the best way. There's something we can do, and we're in it now, you know. But I think for some people, it's this thing of, well, now what do I do? I'm stuck in this forever thing, and I have anxiety, and anxiety can play with that fear, I should say. So first, we just wanted to like validate that and normalize that that's a possibility that can show up.
Mhm.
And also, I know that like, it's so frustrating when anxiety can rob you of something that's so beautiful and so special. And we hope that this episode will give you some clarity and hopefully some peace and give you some steps to what to do to get out of it and really enjoy the marriage that you're in.
Yeah. I think there's definitely layers to this. I do feel like, because even when you brought up that third situation where like someone said they have like uh, a lot of anxiety, but they are unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, because for me, when you say that, it's a little vague. I need a little
Sure.
more context. It's like, okay, are you unhappy because you have anxiety, or are there like real things that in your marriage that are just really unhealthy, or
Yeah.
that are making
Yeah.
you actually unhappy, and then that's causing anxiety?
It's
Because
from
that's different.
anxiety, from
Okay,
specifically from anxiety. Yeah.
okay. So just wanted
Yeah.
to put a little context there.
Totally.
So everything here is mostly anxiety. Um, so I think that's important to talk about. And I think something you were mentioning, because I have my opinion on this, especially when it comes to like marriage. I feel like I want to be pretty like straightforward.
Mm.
I have pretty strong thoughts and beliefs about that. And to be honest, that's something that really helped me when we got married, because once we were married, my anxiety pretty much like disappeared in a couple days,
Yeah.
and I never had any more relationship anxiety after that. And I know it's because of my beliefs about marriage, and I know it's because it's because of um my perspective on you know things, and my perspective on marriage, and how sacred it is, and so that really helped me. But I feel like before we talk about that, I think you said you wanted to talk about the fact that like some people need to dig deeper, you know.
Yeah. So, some people, it sounds like maybe have done work ahead of time. And then some people, maybe you didn't do work, but you were maybe hoping it would go away, or maybe it started after you're married. I don't know. But the thing is some people you're able, there's certain teachings will say that it might not go super deep, but it works for you, where it's like kind of like love is a choice. You can go ahead and like figure out, even like for maybe for even for like RAA, for example. RAA is a really good practical tool that you can use, and we hit a lot of topics,
Mm-hmm.
but we may not go super deep into it because it's kind of like an anxious thought. I help you address the thought. We give masterclass on that, and it can help a lot of people in that way. But for some people, you need to know like what is going on in the first place. Why is my anxiety actually triggered to the level that it is? And we were talking about it actually in the car on the way to get groceries, but some connections that what keeps anxiety alive is the fact that there's obviously a negative core belief that I'm believing. There's a thought that comes into my head that I believe has some sort of truth to it, whether that's you made the wrong choice. What if you married the wrong person? What if you've missed out on your soulmate? You think that there's some truth to that, so you turn to that thought, and it already like takes root into your system. And what makes it even more scary is this fear of what if like the worst case scenario is actually true. Like, what if that is true? And then if that's the case, I have to break up my family. What if I do have to get a divorce? If that is true, that means I'm stuck, and now I'm in a loveless marriage. Like, there's some ounce of it that's like, what if that becomes true? And the thought that I'm having, there's some truth to it. And so, if you don't know why these thoughts, like where these thoughts are coming from, and why they have any meaning to you in the first place, you're going to be stuck in an anxious loop for a very long time. And it feels very scary because you're like, all these thoughts are true. I don't know, get out of it, but I'm stuck. And it's like, the more I believe this thought, the bigger this thought goes, and you get more and more anxious and tormented. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a tormenting. We know exactly, excuse me. We know exactly what it feels like to be tormented by anxious thoughts. And it is, I really wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I don't have any enemies, but I wouldn't wish this on anyone ever, truly, because it's to be trapped by your own thoughts are it's so you become hopeless and then you get depressed and then you're like, well, I don't know what to do anymore. This is my life and this does not have to be your life. But if you don't have awareness and understanding of why these thoughts have showed up in the first place, then it kind of like is still going to take root because you're like, well, if we don't get to the root, there's still going to be part of you that believes that thought is true. And that's the problem. If you believe that thought is true, then it's already won.
Mm.
That's a fact. And if you, and it's taking the steps to know why that thought is actually a lie. Those intrusive thoughts and anxious thoughts are all lies, period. There's no, um, like, what am I trying to say? There's no exception to that rule. It's period. An intrusive thought and an anxious thought are all lies. That's not going to change. And the more that you know that and can actually connect to that, then me actually can uproot it. Because if I know that that's not true, even if it feels true, it's not the truth, then I can take the steps to really get the freedom that is necessary for me. And so I think that that's necessary to share and say no matter what, because this is why we talk about you can listen to a podcast and it can make you feel good for a second, or you can you can see a reel that can give you some peace for a moment. But those are very temporary, unfortunately, because if the thought is deeply rooted into your system, there's nothing that we can say that's going to help you really get the freedom until you do the work to get the freedom you need.
Yeah.
So that's the precedence I think is always helpful because some people may not, maybe they're like, okay, I just need to know that the anxious thought is a lie. And that's helpful. Great. Love that. Let's go ahead and move forward from that. And we can talk about that here, this podcast. But it's essential. It's not just for, to be honest, this is what Matthew is saying too. He's going to go into it, I know. It's one thing if you're dating, and I'm not saying dating isn't important. It's important. But once you're married, forget it. I'm sorry that you're not allowed to let those anxious thoughts take over anymore because we need to figure out what's going on. And you can't just like be passive about it. Like, I'm sorry, but it's easy to be like, oh, it's fine. I'll figure it out. I don't need to pay money or whatever. But you are going to be in a marriage that you don't even know if you are quote unquote supposed to be in, or what if I missed out on God's will or whatever because I'm in a marriage. Those are lies. And we can't let anxiety rob you of something that's so special and sacred. Marriage is sacred, period. So I think that that's like something I think that we need to say. And so I think that that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, you need to do the work, I think, especially if your marriage is threatened by the anxiety and you don't know what to do about it, you need to seek help. And that can be through, obviously coaching or whatever it is, therapy,
Therapy.
whatever it is. I know for therapists, sometimes it's kind of tricky because they're not necessarily like experts in the relationship anxiety game, especially if you make some like religious OCD in there as well, because some people are like you read earlier, like what if it's not God's will, like so that's even probably trickier for some therapists. But obviously, if you listen to us, is because we're probably one of the few voices who are actually talking about this and who understand this topic. Because we realized that we were able to make the difference between someone like your own will and your own desires and anxiety. Well, like I do feel like sometimes therapists, they kind of mix it up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if you're anxious, you brought up an anxious thought, they're not gonna be like, that's anxiety, we're gonna put it away, or like we're gonna treat it as not part of you. They're more gonna be like, oh yeah, so what if, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like that's they don't really understand the aspect of anxiety where like anxiety is just not you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you have a therapist who entertains an intrusive thought, that is not okay. That's bad. And
yeah,
I think that some people, again, I'm not blaming anybody who doesn't understand this topic. Not everybody experiences this, but it's easy to entertain that thought. And then it gets bigger and bigger. And you're like, oh my gosh, but now you're validating it. We cannot validate intrusive thoughts. And it's
hmm,
really important to be able to have someone who can distinguish between what is an intrusive and anxious thought and what is actually truth.
yeah, yeah. And I think something about this that's important to know for me, and I think you would agree with me, but truth is not um relative, if that makes sense. Truth doesn't change depending on who you are. There's one truth, and that's the truth that you need to believe in. And so I think for us, this is how we see things, and this is why we're also able to help people, because we see that truth, and we call everybody we call you up to that truth, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So instead of being like, oh well, you have this thought, maybe that means something. No, if it, for us, if it's not aligned with the truth, then we're not aligning with it.
Yeah.
And so for us, obviously, that truth comes mostly from the Bible, and just from the Word of God. So, anyways, what I wanted to say, about this topic for me is that I have really little patience for anxiety when people are married, because, like she said earlier, like I said as well, marriage is so sacred. Marriage is probably the most important covenant you are gonna have in this life, besides obviously, if you're Christian, be like believing in Jesus and having a relationship with Him. But besides that, like, marriage in the eyes of God is like the most sacred thing,
Mm.
and you cannot let your thoughts threaten that, because that's not God's will. So if you're worried about your marriage not being God's will, you're actually doing the complete opposite of God's will, because God's will is not for you to worry if you're in the wrong relationship or not, or like to tell you that who you married is the wrong person. His will is you were married, you made the covenant, it is sacred, and you need to honor that, and you need to fight for it, and you need to not ever walk away from this. Which obviously there are situations which, even the Bible would outline, like, people who cheat, and then I would also consider abuse and things like that.
Yeah.
um, but otherwise, if you're with someone who's like healthy, and you're healthy, and we're not saying we're perfect, obviously it's not what we're saying, but if you're in the relationship that is healthy enough, and even that person said, like, they're married to the love of their life, I'm like, come on, like, you just saying that, you cannot let your thoughts just run the show,
Mm.
and you cannot. That's why the Bible says to keep your thoughts captive.
Yeah.
Like, you need to, if you don't have a hold, and no matter if you're Christian or not, if you don't have a hold on your thoughts and on the meaning you give them, your life is going to be horrible, because you're going to think that every thought that is uh, concerning in any way, like, even if it's like a really small thought that brings any type of, warning, and cause anxiety, you give it meaning, your life is going to be horrible, and you're always going to live in the anxious cycle. Because, to be honest, like, anxiety, here we talk mostly about relationship anxiety, but the more we work with this, the more we realize, like, sometimes it's not really just about relationships. It's a deeper issue, when it comes to just anxiety as a bigger picture.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And right now, because of this season, for some reason, your anxiety decided to focus on your relationship. But what can happen is, like, once you move on from that, anxiety can show up for something else,
Yeah.
another topic, because it's really not about that thing. It's just about you struggling with that anxiety and learning to discipline yourself, and keep your thoughts captive and have
Yeah.
self control. And so for me in marriage, like, that was the thing. When we got married, I was like, no, like, there's no need for me to be anxious anymore, even though there were no need for me to be anxious when we were dating.
Sure.
But when I was married, for me, it was like, no, I sealed the deal. There's no going back, because I know that if there was any going back, I would be outside of God's will. If
Mm.
there was any thoughts of divorce, or there was any thoughts of us walking away, whatever it is, for me in my head, it's like, no, once you're married, that's it. You stick to it, and that's what prevails over everything else. This is what God's will is over everything else in your relationship, in your life. To be honest, it's like marriage is uh, the most important covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how I saw it, and that's why I say I just have a little patience for that. Not that like I don't want to be mean to you if you're struggling with this, but you need to get a hold of yourself. You need to understand that you hold the power to your thoughts, and you have the right to how do you say, like, shut out
Yeah.
thoughts or not. You have the right to give them meaning or not. You have the right to let them influence your life or not. Um, and it's not just because you have a thought that's concerning that you should pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're thinking that maybe God's saying something, no, because God doesn't speak it with anxiety. He doesn't speak when there's this sense of, oh my gosh, like I need to do something about it because otherwise, like this is it. You are like this. How can I describe this? Like doom and gloom, or
Yeah.
just this weight that comes with a thought that's like the weight of urgency, the weight of, oh my goodness, am I doing something wrong? And I don't want to disappoint God. And whenever you go in that mode, I can already tell you that's not God. He doesn't speak like that. So for me, from the get go, that's like, no, I'm not even going to give power to that because that's not from Him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what is what can keep these thoughts going too, or not even keep the thoughts going, when you are in a marriage, we'll say, and you have this belief, or an intrusive thought, I should say, that says, like, yeah, you don't really love him, or what if you're in the wrong marriage, or what if you married the wrong person? What's going to take place is that every single thing your partner does, you're putting it from that perspective now. So if you guys have a conflict, you're like, well, yep, I married the wrong person, so of course we're having conflict.
Mm.
Oh, he didn't do the dishes when I asked him, of course, because he's not the right person for me. He did this and wrong, whatever you end up doing, you're putting him up on this negative pedestal. We'll say it's all from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Everything this person does is going to be wrong because, well, I'm in the wrong person anyway, so I don't really love him anyway, or now I'm stuck, and what am I going to do? That's like, I want you to just try to imagine for a second that was reversed. So every single thing that you did, your partner was just like, well, yeah, she can't do anything right anyway because, well, I'm with the wrong person. Well,
Mm.
of course, like they're a bad mom or whatever because they're not. For example, let's just say the person was doing that. You would feel so, I mean, down one, but you would feel so small.
Mm.
And I don't think we realize that what our anxiety does. Our anxiety is vicious. Our anxiety is not our friend. Intrusive thoughts are not our friends. And what it does is it diminishes everybody we love around us, because whoever is on the other side of that anxiety, that person is very small to you, and you don't respect them unintentionally. I don't think that we realize like what anxiety can do if we're not careful. It's the same thing for those who are dating, and every single thing your partner does, you're like, well, I'm questioning if I should be with them anyway. I don't even know if this is God's will. So it makes sense that they aren't praying well. It makes sense that they're, you know what I mean? We're making them so small,
Yeah.
and we're diminishing their value. And that we're separating ourselves from anxiety. So I'm not saying you're doing it. Your anxiety is doing it, and we're letting it. And that's not okay. Because if this was reversed, we would never want to be on the other side of someone else's anxiety. And so we need to be careful, as Matthew is saying, to hold every thought captive and not let our anxieties just run amok, like run rampant in our mind, and just let it be what it is. Like,
And
you have to think
chaos.
of it as like I've never seen one in real life, but you ever watch a video of a tornado or a tsunami or a hurricane or anything that's devastating, it rips through everything that's in its path.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same thing anxiety does. It rips through every single thing that's in its path. So your relationship, well, it's ripping through that. The person and who they are, ripping through their character, ripping through their spiritual life, ripping through everything. And at the end of it, you're just like, you, unintentionally we think it's justified because we're trying to shift through this big choice, but it's not justified and it's not right, and it isn't okay. And so if you notice you're doing that, and every single thing your partner does, it's like being knocked down and it's like diminished and ridiculed and criticized, that like get out of that cycle. Just be aware that you're doing it, and then like honestly, even personally, because your thing is you're probably not telling your partner that they're doing that. Like I want to say this. Like, honestly, I'm saying repent on your own thoughts of like, whoa, I've been doing that, and I didn't even realize that that was something that was. I was just in an anxious loop, and everything I was doing was from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's what anxiety completely changes who our reality, and it kind of changes our personality because that is not who you are. the you as an anxious person is not equivalent to who you are as a person.
Mm.
Because I know that everyone listens to this podcast, you guys probably have the biggest hearts. You guys want to please God. You guys want to have a good marriage. You want to love your partner. You want to do all these things. And what anxiety is doing is making you the opposite of that. And that isn't who you are. That isn't who you are. We're not connecting to that because you're not an anxious person. You have anxiety. It's
Yeah.
very different. You're not an OCD person. You have relationship OCD. That's not the same thing. You are an incredible wife. If husband's listening to this, you're your incredible husband. Like those, that's the truth about who you are. So we need to match up to that reality, and that you can't have anxiety and do both. Like that's the thing. Like you can't have intense relationship OCD or intense relationship anxiety and also be an incredible husband and wife, because it overtakes who you are,
Mm.
and it's hard to manage. But you can't do both. You have to pick one or the other. You want to have like relationship anxiety and OCD, and then be miserable, and also unintentionally be a really bad partner. That's what happens. Or obviously, we need to get rid of this in order for us to actually be the people we want to be. Um, and so I wanted to make that clear because I think that we live in our head so much that we don't realize that we are criticizing and diminishing the value of the person around us as much as we are. And it's all coming from a belief that we need to uproot of, if you believe that you're in the wrong relationship, you believe you made a mistake, you believe that you made the wrong choice, whatever you think is here. Again, this is only for healthy relationships. We're not talking about abusive relationships. We're not talking about domestic violence. We're not talking about any of that. If you're in anything like that, get out of that. That's bad. You don't deserve that. We're not referring to anything like that. Anything that's abusive or toxic, that's not that. We're talking to those who are in healthy relationships, who you married an incredible person, but your anxiety is coloring that perspective.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, if your thoughts are chaotic, they're just not worth listening to.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and another thing that I want to say is, if like your other part, like your partner, doesn't struggle with those thoughts, you like if we're talking about like God's will and stuff like that, then most likely you're fine. You know what I mean? Like, because why would God tell you but not your partner?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like that's also another thing for me, where like anxiety makes it it's all about you, um, and it's like forgetting the bigger picture and forgetting the other person.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing too. It's like, okay, well, you're not better than the other person, and you don't hear God's voice better than the other person. Like if the other person is like not at all struggling with that in your marriage, then most likely you're fine. Like you're in a good place. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um,
Can I ask you a question that
yeah.
I feel like this would come up? So, what if someone says, "Well, this person was a baby Christian, so I hear the Lord better"? I want to know what you would say to that.
Well, that's not biblical. I don't think that in the Bible we see really um, any, like obviously you see people who are more experienced than others, yes, but God speaks to both equally.
Hmm.
Um, there's not really like distinction between like God speaking to a baby Christian, which I don't like that term,
I know.
and a more mature Christian. Like I think that your understanding of God should be a little better. But if you're struggling with thoughts like that, I'm not sure it is. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes I feel like baby Christians are more mature than older Christians, because older Christians have had
Mm.
so many teachings and so like just so much. And unfortunately, like for a lot of us, especially if we're struggling with religious OCD, that for me tells me that you've been Christian for a little while.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, it seems like your theology has been poisoned.
Look at
You
Samuel and look at Eli. God was speaking, he was speaking directly to Samuel, calling his name, and Eli couldn't even hear it. You know what
mm.
I mean? Like that. Samuel was
Yeah,
a
if
baby
God needs to
Christian.
speak to you, speak to you.
Exactly.
And the truth is, yeah, exactly like I said, like for me, even before we got married, that's the reason I had anxiety, is because of religious teachings I received after being Christian for like 8+ years.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and being in a church that was unhealthy, and my theology being poisoned by religion, you
Mhm.
know? And so sometimes I'm like, dang, newer Christians understand more about God than older Christians.
Yeah. Yeah. At
So
times, like I think it's like it's more pure because you're
yeah,
like, okay, I'm just getting what I'm hearing. I read the Bible and I hear the Lord. It's like not a question. But we have a lot of kind of filters, unfortunately, that kind of can prevent it. It doesn't mean we hear less or more, but sometimes it can get in the way,
yeah.
especially if
So,
you're believing ROCD or relationship anxiety.
but we had an episode on that, I think, on spiritual maturity and all that.
Okay,
I think we talked about that.
sure. But yeah,
Um,
probably.
yeah. So, anyways, that's another thing. And obviously, if both of you have a relationship anxiety, that still doesn't mean that your relationship is wrong.
We're good examples of that.
Yeah, that
We
means
both had it.
that means again, like, because anxiety again is just not about your relationship. It's about your personal issues, your uh, um, false beliefs that you might believe in. That's really what it's about more than it's not about being with the wrong person. You're
Sure.
looking at the wrong. You're looking at a and like a fact an outside factor to try to influence what's on the inside. Where really it's in here that you need. This is what needs to change. It's not what's here. It's not this that
Yeah.
needs to change. It's here. It's a heart problem. It's a mind problem. It's not a relationship problem.
Mm,
Um, so I think that's obviously the most important thing to remember. Because if you keep looking, and that's with anxiety in general, to be honest, the things that you worry about, you think that taking care of them will make you feel better. But in reality, it's here and here that the problem is. It's not about the things that you need to fix. It's not about the relationship that's wrong. It's not about uh, whatever you're anxious about. It can be a lot of things. It's about here and here.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope that was helpful. If you're listening to this and you're like, okay, like I'm hearing you and I know that I need to get some help because I need some clarity. I listen, if you want to do one-on-one coaching with me, at least if you I have 1 month option, sorry, 1 month option and 3 month option. And you can always sign up for the 1 month and then transition to 3 month, or 1 month can be more than enough. And we will put the link below. I'll make sure to let that be the case. We'll put the link below for that for sure. Because again, I think some deeper work is going to be helpful for you. And we also, I'm thinking when we're gonna put it out, but it won't be coming out for a bit. We are having. I'm gonna just keep talking about it so it's in your mind. We have a course coming out soon that's gonna help walk through all of this. And you can just like purchase it whenever, but it probably won't come out until the fall because we just have some logistics we need to get taken care of. So if you need something help now, I would just recommend one-on-one coaching, um, and we can go from there. And so I'll put the link below. We hope this is helpful. Thank you all for listening. If you like this episode, don't forget to, do all the things, subscribe, share to somebody who needs to hear this. Maybe somebody you know is dealing with relationship anxiety and they're married. Send this to them and I hope this is encouraging for them. And do whatever, all the things you need to do. Go
Like,
ahead and do it.
comment.
Like, comment, subscribe, all the things. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all. If we do an episode this month, you'll see us in 2 weeks. If not, we'll see you in August.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Make sure you guys.